Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you are watching Boyd News. Want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a very big lineup of news to brief you all on today. So today's date is June 20th, 2025, and it's Friday. Welcome to the end of your week. Hope you guys are ready for your weekend. We've got a lot of news to cover in today's update with this war. We're going to start off with a massive story out of Russia today from their central bank, actually. We're going to be discussing their economy, as it looks like things are not going well for the Russians right now in this fight against Ukraine. And it really makes you wonder if at some point Russia will not be able to continue this battle against the Ukrainians because they're going to run out of money. So we're going to start off with this story here on your screen. Russian central bank governor admits last economic resources exhausted. The resources which enabled Russia's economy to grow over the past 2 years, despite its full scale war against Ukraine and international sanctions, have now been depleted. Okay, so that's a very big report. And this is a picture of the central bank governor, Elvira Nabiulina, if I'm saying her name correctly. She was speaking at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum in Russia. So that apparently is a forum that's still going on today. It's supposed to end by tomorrow on the 21st. It started on Wednesday. We talked a little bit about this on Wednesday as well. I brought up a couple statements that were coming out from that conference. And we also had the economic minister even warning out of Russia as well at this conference that apparently the Russian economy is on the verge of a recession right now. So things are not really looking good over there at all in terms of their economy. And it looks like they're entering into a massive cooling stage right now. And they're really running out of money. And this is all due to sanctions onto Russia and just the extreme costs of this war, all the resources that are being destroyed on the Russian side. We've been seeing so much damage to Russia's military here. They're losing lots of troops, lots of equipment. So I'm sure by now it's really starting to catch up on Russia's economy. And I want to show you guys this report. We'll talk about this today. And it has a lot of good information showing the extent of the damage to Russia's economy as they continue to fight this war against Ukraine. We also have reports today that Estonia is beefing up their border. I've got pictures and videos, them building anti-tank ditches over there, so they're getting ready for the Russians to possibly attack them in the future. Hopefully that is never the case, but the Estonians are getting ready, as the Baltic nations, we know for months now, have been preparing for a major attack from the Russians if the Russians choose to attack NATO. And also information today on a massive prisoner exchange that took place as well between Russia and Ukraine once again. So we'll go over all those details today and numerous other things we're going to get into as well. So we're going to start off with this mainstream news report real quick, and then we'll jump on over to X. I just want to show you guys all the details regarding Russia's economy here. So from Kiev Independent, Russia's war-fueled economy is running on empty. Central bank chief warns. You can see the date here, June 20th, 2025. Here's a picture of Elvira Nabiulina, the head of the central bank out of Russia. And it says right here, Russia's wartime economic momentum is fading fast with key resources nearly exhausted. Russia's central bank governor Elvira Nabiulina said, warning that the country can no longer rely on the same tools that sustained growth in the first 2 years of the full-scale war against Ukraine. Moscow Times reported on June 19th. Speaking to at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, Nabiulina said that the Russian economy has been expanding on the back of free resources, including labor, industrial capacity, bank capital reserves, and liquid assets from the National Wealth Fund, all of which are now reportedly nearing depletion. Look at that, guys, nearing depletion. They're literally running out of spare reserves that keep their economy afloat during this time of war. We grew for 2 years at a fairly high pace because free resources were activated, she said. We need to understand that many of those resources have truly been exhausted. Speaking at the same forum, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered officials not to allow stagnation or recession in the Russian economy under any circumstances. We must consistently change the structure of our economy, he said. The comments come after Russia's ambassador to the UK, Andrei Kalin, claimed in an interview with CNN this week that Russia is spending only 5 to 7% of its federal budget on the war. Kalin claimed that Russia can continue waging its war, saying Moscow is winning. Let me know if you think that Russia's only spending 5 to 7% on this war, considering all the losses they're taking consistently. I mean, they're launching missiles and drones into Ukraine every single day. They're spending a lot of money with their economy. I'm sure it's a lot higher than 5%, but you guys can let me know what you think. According to the state statistics agency Rosstat, Russia's unemployment rate has dropped to a historic low of 2.3%. At the same time, mass immigration and large scale wartime recruitment have created a labor shortage estimated at 2 million people. Industrial capacity utilization has surged beyond 80%, the highest in modern Russian history. Yeah, think about all the people that have left Russia that are trying to flee from being thrown into this fight against Ukraine, and then all the people that are being mobilized for war as well. I'm sure that's taken a lot away from industries aside of Russia, and there's probably a massive labor shortage just due to that because everybody's out fighting this war, and a large majority of people that work in these industries are probably men. They're all busy fighting in Ukraine, and many of them even losing their lives, right? So now it says here Russia's economy is now on the verge of transition to recession. Russian economy minister Maxim Reshetnikov said at the same forum, official data shows that GDP growth slowed from 4.1% in late 2023 to just 1.4% in the first quarter of 2024. Okay, so that's literally within like 1 to 2 quarters. Look at the drop here from 4.1% to 1.4% in GDP growth, with the economy contracting quarter on quarter for the first time since 2022. Business profits in March fell by 1/3 overall and dropped by half in the critical oil and gas sector. Industrial growth stagnated at 1.2% year over year between January and April, while civilian sectors of the economy began shrinking. Retail turnover growth slowed from 7.2% in December to just 2.4% in April. So look how it's talking right here about the oil and gas sector dropping in half. Okay, so that's probably due to all these strikes on oil refineries, oil depots that Ukraine was carrying out for like a 6 month period from late last year all the way till about February, March of this year. We saw lots of oil and gas facilities in Russia going up in smoke due to drone attacks. Finally, it says here an anonymous, a Russian analyst told Novaya Gazeta Europe that government technocrats are effectively telling Putin it's time to choose between war or economy. During its invasion of Ukraine, Russia's faced rising inflation due to record military spending, pushing the central bank to maintain high interest rates. Under government pressure, the bank cut the rate slightly from 21 to 20% earlier in June, despite concerns about weakened private investment. Officials have scaled back key development projects and reduced shipments of metals and oil products. Early hopes for recovery in 2025, driven by talks with the U.S., have faded as inflation and sanctions weigh heavily on growth. Yeah, so it looks like Russia's in a heavy decline right now with their economy and could potentially by the end of the year maybe fall into recession. So it looks like things are not looking good for the Russians. And this is actually really good news for Ukraine, because if Russia runs out of money, they can't fund this war effort anymore. And maybe they won't be able to purchase as many supplies to build weapons that they need as well, which will slow down the war effort. And in the end, that's really going to help out Ukraine. So we'll keep an eye on Russia's economy and continue to monitor that. And we're going to move on now and talk about some more topics. So let's jump on over here to X with Ministry of Defense out of Estonia. Estonia is constructing anti-tank ditches on its southeastern border as part of the Baltic Defense Line. There's no imminent military threat, but readiness is key. Serious defense begins with serious preparation. So these are pictures coming out from Estonia getting ready here. We know Estonia's apparently has been planting anti-personnel mines on their border as well. We know that basically all the Baltic states and even Finland pretty soon, they're trying to get out of the Ottawa Treaty that prevents them from placing anti-personnel mines on their border. So they're getting ready to go here. There's a picture of that anti-tank ditch. Here's a video as well from next to Estonia's begun building a new defensive line, on the border with Russia. According to public broadcaster ERR, Estonian authorities have started constructing a new defensive line along the country's southeastern border with Russia. At the moment, anti-tank ditches are being dug in certain areas. By the end of this year, construction of 28 bunkers is planned, along with establishment of storage facilities. The report notes that this is the first section of the so-called Baltic Defense Line. So here's video coming out showing these construction workers building these ditches over here as they're preparing for a potential Russian attack in the future. This is something we've been talking about for a long time. Estonia, along with other Baltic nations, even Poland, Finland, they're all getting ready to go, as we could potentially see a war in the future with Russia. And, whether or not that happens, I think it is smart to have readiness for sure. Be ready with the military over there just in case it happens. But apparently Estonia is getting ready, and this is new video coming out today. Now Volodymyr Zelensky, he says home. and he's putting out a new video here showing a prisoner exchange that took place today between Russia and Ukraine once again. And this is like what, two or three of these this week that we've reported. We just had one yesterday. So I want to show you guys this video real quick. Take a look.
Я ж ушел в Станково в БМП, мы с тобой вместе же на ПП.
All right, so once again, what I'm getting from this story is that a lot of these men who have been returned back to Ukraine apparently have been in captivity for at least 2 years, maybe 3 years. Some of them towards the start of the war that were taken from like Mariupol during the fall of Mariupol down in southern Ukraine. Many of these fighters were coming from that area and are just starting to be returned home. And again, you can see many of them look very ill and very skinny at the same time, malnourished. This is something we continue to see with a lot of these soldiers coming back home, but it's great to see them returning back to their homeland. Here's a few pictures as well from Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. Most of the warriors returning today from Russian captivity have been held for over 2 years, and now at last, they are home. They're defenders of Mariupol, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, Kharkiv, and Chernihiv regions, warriors of the armed forces, the National Guard, and the Border Guard Service. I'm grateful to everyone who is bringing our people back. We are working to ensure that the exchanges continue until we bring everyone back. Glory to Ukraine. Yeah, so we still don't know exactly how many of these soldiers were returned back, or these prisoners of war from Russia. But allegedly another batch again today. Okay, and there's been numerous already. We've been seeing at least 3 to 4 or so over the last week or two. It looks like Russia and Ukraine are still agreeing on more of these prisoner exchanges, so that's really good to see. Obviously, the Russians are getting more of their troops back as well. Okay, so just a few photos coming out today. Now for Max 25. Some Russian prisoners refuse to be exchanged, according to Deputy Justice Minister Pikolov. First of all, this concerns mercenaries who are not citizens of Russia. They said that they have 3 meals a day here, paid work, medical support, but at home, there was none of that. Okay, so apparently some Russian soldiers don't want to be returning back to Russia, as maybe they'd rather just continue to be prisoners inside of Ukraine because they've got meals, they've got work, they've got everything that they could ask for. Maybe that's also why they joined into the Russian military, was obviously because to make some money, right? But apparently they don't want to go back to Russia because they've got all the things they need just being in captivity. So that's kind of a good and bad thing, right? But unfortunately, these soldiers are going to have to go back to Russia. They can't stay in Ukraine forever. So apparently some of them are trying to refuse heading back to Russia. Now for Max 25, Crimea, Bakhchisari, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Kind of tough to pronounce that. Military base was hit by a drone. So we got a video here we can show you guys. So apparently we had a drone entering down here to Crimea. There's a military base that, to me, doesn't really look like a military base. If it is, it's very run down here. Yeah, apparently Ukraine was attacking Crimea last night, at least with a few drones. We had some damage over here and fragments of a drone that was found on the ground right there. This was probably a Russian soldier recording this. And this is a base that's located kind of like southern Crimea, very close to Sevastopol. So we did have reports of drones entering down here. Here's a picture as well showing what looks like some sort of fire, but it's a little bit hard to tell what we're looking at here. But something did catch on fire due to a drone attack, most likely from Ukraine. Now from Astra, Ukrainian drones hit defense plant in Tula twice in 3 days. Operations suspended. According to Astra sources in regional emergency services, 5 drones attacked the Shupanov Instrument Design Bureau in Tula on June 18th. The facility develops precision-guided weapons. The strike damaged a power substation building, 3 product warehouses, an administrative building. A fire covering 400 square meters broke out. Second attack occurred overnight on June 20th. One drone hit a hangar used for loading finished products. The roof and walls were damaged, according to Astra. Operations at the plant have been halted. Early this morning, the Russian Defense Ministry reported downing 3 drones over Tula region. The Shupanov Design Bureau is one of Russia's largest defense enterprises. It develops precision weapons for the Army, Navy, and aerospace forces, as well as air defense systems, rapid-fire cannons, small arms, civilian products. It It is part of the high precision systems holding under Rostec. The Bureau was added to the U.S. export sanctions list in July 2014, the U.S. blocking sanctions list in February 2020, and the EU sanctions list on December 18, 2023, due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There's a photo of Putin at the plant in 2022. Okay, so here's Vladimir Putin right here, the Russian president. And allegedly, this Shupanov Instrument Design Bureau in the Tula region, not too far away from Moscow, was attacked again last night. Unfortunately, I don't have videos coming out from that area to show the evidence of this strike, but according to this information, it was attacked again. And just 2 days ago, on the 18th, Ukraine also attacked it. So it looks like, according to what we have here, this facility may be shut down for right now. As it says here, operations have been halted at the plant. So that's very good news, because they're producing precision-guided weapons over here, and another massive hit to Russia's defense industries, as we've been seeing a lot of them, defense plants inside of Russia being attacked recently over the past few weeks. Now, Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, last night the Russians launched massive attacks on Odessa, Kharkiv, and their outskirts using more than 20 strike drones. Around 20 people were injured, including 2 children, girls aged 12 and 17, and 3 state emergency service workers who had arrived at the scene of the strikes. Tragically, 1 person was killed in Odessa. My condolences go out to the family and loved ones. In total, 86 drones were launched against Ukraine last night, most of them the Russian-Iranian Shaheeds. Once again, residential buildings, ordinary businesses, civilian infrastructure, and vehicles were set ablaze. I think our rescuers, 132 employees, and over 30 units of equipment were deployed at the sites. In the Kharkiv region, response efforts are still ongoing. Russia continues its tactics of deliberate terror against our people, and it is precisely for this that it must face a strong response, one that will significantly impact Russia as a whole and its ability to continue the war. The G7 countries and the EU know the recipe: strong pressure, sanctions targeting the energy sector and the shadow fleet, and a $30 price cap on Russian oil. The sooner the sick minds in the Kremlin lose the ability to finance the war, the more lives we'll be able to save in Ukraine. So that was a statement from Volodymyr Zelensky today, due to a major drone attack that the Russians carried out onto Odessa in southwestern Ukraine. Take a look at this. Right, so once again, the city of Odessa being heavily hammered by Russian drones again last night. We can see lots of damage to residential buildings. Here's a woman being saved by some firefighters over here. So somewhere around 80 or so drones were flying into Ukraine last night. Still a good amount, close to 100 that we've been seeing about on average for a few weeks now. So yeah, very sad to see, guys, more damage inside of Odessa again. This is in southwestern Ukraine. Now, from World Source News 24/7, breaking in recent hours, Russia launched a significant drone attack on Odessa, Ukraine, striking several residential buildings. Other cities in Ukraine have also been hit. Here's a video 26 seconds long. You're going to see a drone smashing into a high-rise residential building. Take a look.
Пизда! Пойди. Нахуй! Ебать! Пизда!
All right, we'll go ahead and pause it right there. So if you guys saw in that last video, there was a part where a man was recording the ground, and then he started to look up at the top of the building that he was standing in front of. It was like a high-rise building, and you could see what looks like a drone that smashed into that building. I believe this is that same one that we're watching here in that video. This was coming out of Odessa, so very horrifying footage. Hopefully everybody was okay in there. Now from Kate from Kharkiv, Odessa right now, Russia's a terrorist state. So Katis, she lives in Kharkiv, actually up in northeastern Ukraine, which is heavily attacked a lot as well. And she posted this picture of this home that was destroyed from this Russian attack overnight. So very sad to see that, guys. Now from Bliskovka, an American volunteer was killed in Kiev during the Russian attack on the night of June 17th, the New York Times reported. 62-year-old Fred Grandy had arrived from Oregon in late May to help Ukrainians in the aftermath of Russian strikes. He assisted in clearing rubble. His sister said he went to Ukraine out of outrage over pro-Russia statements made by Donald Trump, who echoed Kremlin narratives and criticized President Zelensky. Wow. So that's crazy. So this man went over there because of some of the statements that Trump was making. He wanted to go help the Ukrainians, and unfortunately, he ended up losing his life. We did have a report that an American citizen did lose their life on the 17th. So I'm assuming this was probably him who died over there. As we had a major attack, there was like somewhere around 20 to 30 missiles that were fired that day on the 17th, just 3 days ago, and also around 440 attack drones from the Russians. And apparently he had lost his life over there while he was trying to help the Ukrainians. So very sad news to see there, guys. Now from Nexa, soon the Russian armed forces will be launching up to 800 Shahed drones at once instead of 300 or 400, says communications expert Sergei Beshkrestov, or Resnov, call sign Flash. According to him, Russia's increased production of strike UAVs by 5 to 7 times and is building another factory. He also noted that the new Shaheds are harder to shoot down. They are equipping with antennas resistant to electronic warfare and use increasingly complex strike tactics. So once again, another report that the Russians are going to be launching more drone attacks onto Ukraine here very soon. They're saying up to 800 at once per day instead of 3 to 400, which is kind of the max that we've been seeing recently. When Russia does launch a massive attack, it's usually around 400 at the most or so, maybe 500 on the upper end. So it looks like they could be launching now up to 800 at once, and that's going to be very overwhelming for Ukraine. We're going to be seeing massive damage, so not good news there. Now from Bliskovka, Russia will continue to attack Ukraine with swarms of drones, says Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation. In addition, the Russians will spread the narrative that it is Moscow that is open to negotiations and is forced to fight because Ukraine seems to want war. And they plan to spread the theses that Ukraine is allegedly unable to defend itself, demanding surrender from society. This pressure will have to be withstood, and military solutions against the enemy's swarm attacks are being prepared. Information counteraction is also in place, Kovalenko assured. Okay, so yeah, dangerous situation for Ukraine right now with all these drones that are about to be entering. I mean, if we're seeing 800 to 1,000 per night, and if that ends up being consistent, this is not going to be good for Ukraine. They're going to have a lot of cities that are going to be hammered heavily. People are going to be fleeing out of the cities, going to the countryside to get away from these strikes because a lot of these buildings that people are living in that are being targeted. And this could definitely cause a major collapse over here and put heavy pressure onto Ukraine's economy. Maybe that's what Russia's banking on right now when they're trying to build all these drones. So this is not good to hear at all. Now, Max 25, Russia will strongly and precisely strike the largest cities of Ukraine sometime before June 24th to the 25th. That's just in the next few days. Before the NATO summit, for psychological pressure, Russia has established an intensive production of drones, expert of the National Institute for Strategic Studies, Yizak said. So another report about the drones that, the Russians are producing a lot of them right now, but apparently they're going to be launching a massive attack here again very soon, just prior to the NATO summit that Zelensky's supposed to be attending. And we're hearing that if Trump is going to be there as well, Zelensky's going to try to talk to him and see if they can purchase some weapons. They were supposed to be doing that during the G7 summit a few days ago, but Trump apparently had to leave early because of what's going on with the Middle East. Now, War Translated, deep state analysis shows Russian forces are pushing to keep up attack intensity in June, with a spike in assaults mid-month, most active on the Pokrovsk with 32% of attacks, followed by Kursk, 16.4%, Novopavlivka, 15%, Lyman, 10.3%, and Toretsk, 9.5% sectors. So it's kind of a little chart here showing the increase in Russian attacks as your enemy's attack actions. You can see it was kind of dipping down here towards the beginning of 2025, like in March, and now it's starting to creep back up. And there was even at one point right here at the beginning of May where there was major attacks taking place. That was probably when Russia was starting to launch their offensives. Now it's starting to stabilize a little bit, but otherwise still looks like it's kind of trending upward So that's not good. That shows here that the Russians are attacking more often right now. Now, Peskov, who was commenting on a potential ceasefire, suddenly became too lazy to justify the Kremlin's terrorism. And he said, quote, "Now we have a strategic advantage. Why should we lose it? We will not lose it. We are moving on. We are advancing and will continue to advance." His words are quoted by Sky News. Okay, so even the Kremlin spokesman coming out saying they're going to continue advancing inside of Ukraine. So these are just more statements that we continue hearing out of the Kremlin, showing that Russia's not ready for peace. Okay, so don't expect this war to be ending anytime soon. It's going to continue, and the Russians will keep attacking. Now, for next, the EU has postponed efforts to lower the price cap on Russian oil from $60 to $45 per barrel. Amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, Politico reports, according to the outlet, during this week's G7 meeting, all member states agreed they would rather not make a decision at this time, so the measure will not be included in the new sanctions package. Experts also note that without U.S. support, implementing this initiative would be impossible. All right, here's a report from Politico. Brussels to shelve push for Russian oil price cap amid Middle East chaos. Okay, so they're not going to be dropping the price cap of Russian oil down from $60 to $45 is what they said they were going to be doing. Ukraine's calling for a $30 per barrel price cap on Russian oil, but due to what's happening in the Middle East, they don't want to make any calls yet because the U.S. might get involved in what's going on down there. We might see a major increase in oil here very soon. There's been some estimates from some economists that are stating that if the U.S. strikes Iran, we could see possibly a barrel of oil going up to like $90, maybe higher. Who knows what's really going to happen with that? But that could literally come as early as this weekend. So it looks like the G7 is still waiting to see what happens down there before they impose a new price cap level. Now, for Max 25, China has become a crucial supplier to the Russian military machine, according to The Economist. Since 2023, China has been providing Russia with weapons, components, and civilian drones. The drones used this year have Chinese made antennas. One of the samples contained only 2 U.S. components out of 15. Okay, here's a report from The Economist today. China's become the most important enabler of Russia's war machine. It has crossed the line into providing lethal aid. Yeah, this is something we've been hearing so many times already before, that the Chinese are supplying weaponry over to the Russians, okay, especially for drone production. We even recently heard that the Chinese cut off drone supplies to Ukraine and also to the West, Western countries in Europe also. And apparently they're still continuing to supply the Russians while they cut off all these supplies to Ukraine and also Europe. So crazy, just more reports that the Chinese are involved. And according to The Economist, they're the number one enabler of Russia's war machine, as his post says here. Now for Bliskovka, air defense forces shot down 70 out of 86 enemy UAVs in the north, east, and south of the country. 34 UAVs were shot down by firepower, 36 were locally lost, suppressed by electronic warfare. Enemy airstrikes were recorded in 8 locations, as well as the fall of debris in 11 locations. So here's a report today, guys. 86 drones going into Ukraine overnight, and 70 being either shot down or suppressed by electronic warfare. And from what we understand, most of these strikes that were landing direct hits in Ukraine were down in the city of Odessa today, which we reported on with those new videos coming out. Now for Kiev Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of June 20th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In our final update of the day, Russia's losses as of June 20th, 1,090 troops, 70 AFVs, 81 vehicles and fuel tanks, 3 tanks, 46 artillery systems, 70 UAVs, 1 MLRS, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and 2 special equipment. Okay, so there's your daily update with the amount of equipment being destroyed here on the Russia side. So still about the same numbers here. We're not seeing major fluctuations still, even though we know the Russians are launching more attacks right now. And we had a report yesterday in the Donetsk Oblast of Ukraine that the Russians had launched a major mechanized assault. So I was expecting these AFV and tank numbers to blow up here, at least go into the teens or higher, maybe in the 20s or 30s, who knows. So there was a major Russian assault that was thwarted by the Ukrainians. So far, we're not really seeing these numbers yet. There's a small increase here, at least with AFVs, but still relatively small numbers here. Okay, guys? So I want to thank you so much for tuning in for today's update on June 20th, 2025 on a Friday. and hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.